I was watching this guy on YouTube riding his motorcycle through the desert of Nevada, and he was whooping it up like he's having the best time of his life on a straight, dry road. And then I realized how bored I was and thought, man, what an idiot. It's Saturday morning. So I am riding over McIntosh, which is that mountain. And the road that I'm taking goes up to maybe close to 11,000 feet, and it goes right next to the wilderness area boundary. It's really remote. There are rarely people up there. Maybe you see one person, you know, on this 20-mile ride. And you go through an area where the forest is just so rich and thick with large, tall trees. Very, very beautiful, because that kind of acts like a rain catch up there as the weather goes up the hill to get over McIntosh. And that whole area, McIntosh is just this little edge of it. I'll get back to that. But when the weather has to go up in elevation, it hits lower pressure and it creates the rain and the snow. So Gunnison is in rain shadow. It's fairly dry. We don't get a lot of snow as a rule, sometimes, but not usually. And all of that moisture that Gunnison doesn't get is on that mountain. So the forest is beautiful up there. And today we're going to have some monsoons because of the same effect. As the air heats up, it's going to rise up and make thunderstorms. So I decided I'd better ride this morning. And today is July the 25th. You would think, oh, that's probably the hottest day of the year. And it is hot for Gunnison. The temperatures right now are in the 50s. And at the hottest part of the day today, before the rain starts, it's going to get up to about 87, 88 degrees, maybe 85 for a couple hours. But then the rain will cool things down and we'll have another low in the 50s tonight. So that's what Gunnison, Colorado's about. And by the way, it's not just McIntosh Mountain. That's what I wanted to get back to. And I've said this in previous videos, so you've heard it before. But if you go to Google Earth and you look at the West Elk Wilderness area, there's a mountain there called West Elk Peak. And it's over 13,000 feet high. And there's a range of peaks that kind of go north and south off of this high point. But if you look on Google Earth at it, then you zoom out a little bit, you realize that the range of mountains that makes up the entire West Elk's wilderness, which is large, that entire range of mountains is actually just one mountain that's been weathered down. And the geologists that have studied it found out that that mountain was, based on their best estimates, over 20,000 feet tall at one point in the past. 20,000 feet tall. The highest mountains in Colorado are the 14ers. None of them break 15. The highest one is only 14,400 and some change, and that, of course, is Elbert. But we had a 20,000 foot tall peak here. Essentially, this mountain is about the same size as Kilimanjaro in Africa, but it was weathered down to 13,000 feet. And where a lot of mountain ranges have a bunch of peaks and you can see that they were individual mountains, obviously, this one was just one giant volcano. Of course, that was a long time ago. It's not dormant, it is extinct. So it's not a volcano anymore. But that explains why in the Gunnison Valley you see so much beautiful cliffy stuff that people call the Palisades. It's volcanic breccia, which is a conglomerate of ash and rock and sometimes a little bit of mud. But it's all stuff that came flying out of the volcano and piled up as powder, essentially. Powder and small pumice and stuff like that. But But then over the years, pressure and what have you, it turned into a soft rock. So that soft rock weathers pretty much vertically. So it makes beautiful precipitous cliffs and sometimes towers and things like that. And that's why they call them the Palisades. And that's where I'm riding today. I'm riding on the shoulder of a once 20,000 foot tall volcano. It's Maggie Gulch proper, and at the top there are beautiful views into the castles, Mill Creek, and also of the 13er that I was talking about and some of the other mountains. And that hill right there is my ski area. I call it my private ski resort. It's not really that much except a great place to get some exercise. So in the wintertime, this road is plowed, even though it's BLM land, which normally wouldn't be. But there's a guy who has a little patch of land up here who lives off-grid, and he plows it. So this road stays open in the winter, and there's often really nice snow on that hill. So I skin up and ski down on my lunch break sometimes, just for the exercise and to get some fresh air. There's a herd of elk that live up here, and in the wintertime they like to winter up here in this area. And sometimes when I ski up here they get in my way, which means I don't ski because I don't want to stress out the elk that are trying to make it through a cold hard winter. But it's fun to see them. There are also snowshoe hare. I see a lot of tracks up here. Foxes, mountain lions, coyotes. I've seen all these things up here. So we had a big rain yesterday, and it looks like this didn't quite dry out. This gets greasy, greasy, greasy. Now take it easy. Yeah, I was hoping that it would not be muddy today. When I get higher up on McIntosh, then I should be getting into a little bit more gravel, I hope. I know it gets rockier. So this side of the valley has clay, and when it's wet, especially freshly wet, it might as well be snow. It's so hard to ride on. And then on the other side of the valley, there's a lot of, well, it's a mixture, but there's what I would call black gumbo, which is a very dark soiled black, but it is extraordinarily greasy as well. And I don't know which is worse. Maybe this clay side is worse. On the other side, at least once you get above the gumbo that's down in the valleys, you hit crushed granite, which, of course, sheds water quickly. The mountains on the ridge down there, which you may not be able to see on the GoPro, that's a 14er. That's San Luis. Down in the north end of the San Juans. It's an easy 14er to climb, except there's a very long approach. So it's a long hike, but a gentle slope. There's nothing crazy about it. But on top of that, you get to see the most beautiful areas. You get to see into the Lake City side, where the San Juans are just so beautiful. And you get to also see all the surrounding peaks, and then across into the Sangre de Cristos. And I don't know, sometimes it just feels like you can see forever from the top of a 14er. Yeah, I was not anticipating this much mud. Just take it easy. So I'm just starting to hit the trees, which most places around Gunnison, the trees start like around 10,000 feet. And that's because of the rain shadow, right? You need the altitude to start catching the snow and the rain. And but in this valley, this is not nearly 10,000 feet. I'm just guessing, but I'm about 1,000 feet above Gunnison, so that would be 8,700, something like that in here. So getting closer to 9,000 feet, but the trees are already starting, and that's because this is the wet side of the valley. I was hoping as I climbed I'd get out of the mud, and eventually maybe I will. I don't know. It can stay muddy up here for a long time. I would not call this tacky, whatever that means. You know, when the ground is wet, so your tire sticks to it, but it's not slippery. No, this is just slippery. It sticks to the tires, and then it fills in the tread, and then you kind of lose you lose a lot of the tread on your tires, so then you're riding on slicks. But it's nice, get up into the trees a little bit. Of course, there are a lot of mule deer, and I have seen antelope. I've also seen jackrabbits, of all things, sage grouse, and of course there are golden eagles and bald eagles and all the birds, gray jays. Which I think they renamed Canada jays recently, which I really don't understand. Hopefully it's tacky enough. This gets pretty steep. It used to be really rough, but I think last time I was up here I saw that they'd done a little road work. But we definitely have some steep washouts up here to get through. Could be interesting. Oh, it's a tad drier here. I guess just because there's more drainage, steeper slope. So how steep is this? Looks flat to you, I'm sure. That's about it's about a 20% grade back there. So that's not super steep. Of course, you never see a driveway or a highway that steep. But yeah, that was about a 20% grade. And then on up here, it's going to do that again, probably get a little steeper than 20. That's where I'm hoping it's not terribly muddy. It is drying out. This is good. It's about a 15% grade. So here's a why. It's splitting the road. If you go left, then you get to a really bony, steep hill. If you go down it, there's a series of beaver dams down there. It's really beautiful. But it gets really muddy, and I haven't found the way through yet. There are BLM roads that probably connect with the other side of the mountain. But the last time I tried to get through there, I hit private property and did not get through. I need to try it again, because I know there's a route. The tricky part is that there's open range ranching all around the Gunnison Valley, so there's fencing and gates on BLM roads, and it makes you think, oh no, it's private property, there's a closed gate. But that's actually not the case most of the time. you have to look for the sign that says no trespassing or private property, because there are gates all over the place, just because of the ranching, and you still have the right to go through the gate, keep going. It's public land, but you have to leave the gate as you found it. Or if they say, sometimes there's a sign that says keep gate closed, you just make sure you close it. But yeah, this used to be a horrible washout. It's not so bad now. And it's dry. Yeah, so this is more than 20% grade. Lots of baby heads. Just enough to get your attention. Now this is about a 12% grade right here. It's funny I'm talking about percent grades. I built a house several years back, and I had to make sure that the driveway in the mountains, right, met with the residential code or the county code. And so I had to shoot the grade on that driveway. And then I lived in that house for, the family lived in that house for about 10 years. And got used to that driveway. That driveway was about 12%. And so I know what 12% looks like. And then, you know, you can go a little steeper or less steep from there. It's funny because the county road that ran by that house was an old road that probably wagons had built, you know, people used with horses and wagons. So it was not, it didn't conform to the county code, so it got steeper than 12%. There's a section, it was short, but there was a section that was 20%, I'm sure, which made it really fun in the wintertime. Woo! So this part of the road, you could say McIntosh, but it's not really going up McIntosh. McIntosh is on the other side of the valley to the left. Here we go. So that, bony, more than 20%. Glad it wasn't wet. That right there is what keeps, excuse me, gotta get my breath. That's what keeps people out of here. That section, it takes a good high-profile four-wheel drive. A Subaru Outback might make it, but probably shouldn't try. And if you're on an adventure bike, you better have your skill, because that's too much for the average adventure bike. This is the DRC 400, which is 400E. The E stands for Enduro. So it's really a trail bike that's street legal. It's not quite like your little two-stroke lightweight throw it around bike. It's heavier and bigger than that. And it's a four-stroke. But it does everything I need to do. The one complaint that people have about it is that it could use a lower first gear. It would be very nice if they would make a 6-speed version of this so that they could give a torquey first gear and you'd still have your high end. And it has a good high end. They say the top speed is 90, but it's such a light motorcycle, I don't want to go that fast. I couldn't tell you how fast this one goes. So this is actually the hardest part of the entire ride. Just that steep section back there and then continuing to climb up. You know, back in the old days, if it wasn't horribly steep, people would just go straight up it. Because making a big cut to the side of a mountain is a lot of work to reduce the grade, make switchbacks and all the rest. Had to stand up again for that one. That was in second gear though. Okay, I'm going to take a stop here and show you where we are. We just climbed up on this high shoulder. And like I said, I don't know the name of it. That mountain on the other side of the valley is McIntosh. At least part of it is lower down. And we don't go down much. We go down a little bit, but primarily this contours the valley, make a U. We're going to come back on the other side on that mountain over there. So we've been in the trees for quite a while, but as you see, we just hit the forest boundary right here. Gunnison National Forest. You know, the forest allows you to cut dead wood on the ground, or you see those trees there that are standing dead. If it's a snag that has birds in it, you're supposed to leave it, of course, but you can cut down a dead tree. For firewood, just pull a firewood permit. And there's actually quite a bit of good wood right here, but not many people want to load up a truck and drive on a four-wheel drive road this steep and bony. So there are other places where people tend to cut. I don't see people cutting up here, which is kind of fun. Let me address that. People think that burning wood is a very, very bad thing to do. The reason they think that is because you're releasing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. For sure, you are. And that burning wood, you know, sometimes it's not all that clean. And it can be dirty and smoky. People also think that you're cutting down trees, which are very important for the environment, ecosystem, climate, all the rest. And so there's been kind of a battle against firewood for a long time. But let me address some of that. Number one, when you heat your house with electricity, 60% of the electricity in the United States is still fossil fuels. If you heat your house with natural gas, that's a fossil fuel, 100%. So firewood is not a fossil fuel. It is actually carbon neutral. And people say, no, it's not. We know all that carbon's released when you burn it. But the trunk of the tree holds a carbon that it sequestered as it grew, and that's not carbon from underground. It's not a fossil fuel. It's part of the natural balance of the atmosphere. And the tree sequesters some carbon, and when you burn it, it's released again. But that's a net zero cycle. When a tree rots in the forest, it also releases the carbon as it rots. So it's not a fossil fuel. We're not getting additional CO2 from deep underground and releasing it into the atmosphere. Matter of fact, when we cut down the trees like these that are just dry fuel waiting for lightning to start a forest fire, we're reducing the fire danger in the forest. And if you want to worry about a lot of CO2 being released from firewood, it's when there's a forest fire. Obviously. More baby heads. So, by burning firewood, we reduce the risk of forest fires. We're not releasing fossil fuel carbon. It's net zero. Carbon net zero. And there are other things that should be mentioned too. Whew. Sorry to get my train of thought and my wind back. Oh, it's opening up now. This is beautiful. Wood stoves used to just release raw smoke, half unburned, lots of particulates, fly ash. It just used to blow that out into the atmosphere. However, a long time ago, I don't know, decades, laws were passed that wood stoves have to have a secondary, maybe even tertiary burning chamber. What that means is, instead of the raw smoke going up the chimney, it goes into a chamber above the firebox. It gets super, super hot because it's right above the firebox. And as those gases that aren't burned well, wow, baby heads, baby heads, baby heads. Next time maybe I'll go the other way. It's funner to go down this than up. Okay. That secondary or even tertiary burning chamber, it burns anything that left the firebox under oxidized. And so you end up burning a lot of the other gases so that, you know, wood gases and stuff like that don't escape the chimney. Now, it may not reduce the fly ash a whole lot, but if you get a wood burning stove up to temperature and you go outside and look at the smoke coming out of the chimney with good seasoned wood, the opacity is so low. That, you know, all that fly ash and underburned wood is pretty much taken care of, so it meets EPA standards because it's a modern wood stove. People don't really understand that. But if you burn firewood correctly with the right equipment, then one can make an argument that it's very environmentally sound. I'm not sure I would recommend it in the city, and the reason is because of the population density. You can just really overwhelm, you know, the air in a city as they get overwhelmed with car exhaust and diesel fumes and electrical plants and all the rest. More baby heads. Yeah, this is not an elementary ride. I didn't remember how bony it got up here, but if you have a trail bike or an enduro, I wouldn't attempt it this direction unless you also have quite a bit of experience. It's not a beginner ride. Intermediate. But it's beautiful. We're headed down now a little bit, not much, but we're at the upper end of the valley, kind of the head of the valley up here, and you're gonna see we're gonna cross a beautiful meadow, and we'll do a broad U-turn, and we're gonna end up going back the way we came, but on the road on the other side of the valley. So we're going mostly northwest right now, and we're going to be going south, and almost due south on the other side. And we're going to end up, believe it or not, at Blue Mesa Reservoir. So we started in the north end, just north of the Gunnison River, and we're going up into this forest. And then when it heads back south again, it's a little further west, and you end up in the at the lake. So it was dry for a lot of that, but now we're getting into a little bit of mud again. Must be patchy storms up here. Yeah, this is lovely. So we're starting our broad turn. You can see we're at the head of the valley here. Beautiful wildflowers up here, although I'm going to say it this way, the wildflowers in this valley are reasonable. They're gorgeous. They like to show off their beauty in bite sizes that you can absorb. And if you go on up to Crested Butte, you know, 20 miles north of where I am right now, the wildflowers in the mountains around there, they are obtuse. Maybe obtuse isn't quite the right word. But I think of obtuse because they're exceeding the rational angle. Nah, I'm just being silly. They are almost boastful. They have such thick flowers that it's just a sea of flowers. You see more color than you do green. And they get very tall. They're mountain biking trails up there where I've been biking through the flowers, and the flowers are up to my shoulders because they're so tall. And in other places, maybe they're only knee-high or thigh-high, but they're just so thick, it's like a carpet color. And it's such a rare sight to see. It's almost more than, you know, I guess experience can take in. Another thing, we did Deer Creek mountain bike trail a few years back, and that trail you ride a circuit all the way around Crested Butte, the mountain, not the town, the Mount Crested Butte. And you kind of go up and down and over hill and dale and through valley and up the other side, and every time you come over a little knoll, for some reason there might be a different field of flowers. So maybe all the flowers were yellow on one side of the hill, thick carpet of yellow, like sunflower family flowers. And then you go over the crest of this hill, this little knoll, and on the other side everything's purple, or lavender or pink. And it's like you walked into a room with a different color of carpet. Anyway, it's beautiful up there. That was a really fun day. But I came to a stop on the narrow trail where it was on a steep slope. And the rocks there were basalt. They're not all basalt, but there they were. And cleavage, how rock breaks with basalt, it cleaves off at sharp angles. So you see a lot of really sharp edges and corners all over the rock. It's not rounded like what you see me riding here. I tried to put my foot down when I stopped, and then I realized there was nowhere to put my foot down because it was hanging over open space. So I tumbled off the trail down a steep embankment full of that broken up basalt with all the sharp edges. I tumbled for about 15 or 20 feet, broke a rib, cut my wrist. I learned an important lesson: don't stop where there's not footing. Or make sure your uphill leg is the one you try to put down. But I was able to finish the ride. I was glad my wrist wasn't broken because it felt like it may have been, but it was okay. It just cut up. My rib was broken, but I was still able to ride until the car. But that slowed me down for about 6 weeks after that. I think that the flowers are past their peak. I'm still seeing beautiful flowers, but they're a lot more than this during their peak. The hillside to the right is usually a beautiful bouquet, maybe 30% flowers and 70% green or something like that, and right now it's almost all green, as you see. But it's a beautiful forest up here. Stop and look at some of these. All this slow speed uphill. This is a water-cooled motorcycle, and it got hot. It's boiled over into the overflow, and some of that is boiling out just a little bit, so it's getting a little steamy, but it'll cool off as soon as I can pick up a little speed and quit climbing so much. So this goes flat for quite a ways here. You know, when it comes to keeping my motorcycle cool, this is slippery. Yee. Now I am going to go left, but first I'm going right. I've never taken this road to the end because it dead ends. And I was always trying to make a loop, but I have time today. I want to see what's here. A lot of mud. So this road dead ends at a trail, and it is open to motorcycles according to the maps. It's single track. I've not ridden it, obviously, but it cuts through a short section and comes out at Mill Creek. And Mill Creek is one of the most beautiful places on earth. I don't mind saying that. I don't have to exaggerate. The Breccia cliffs there are just astoundingly beautiful. And if you've ever seen pictures of Gunnison National Forest maps, they use a picture of Mill Creek as the front of the map. It's lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. And if you hike up the Mill Creek Trail, then at the end of that valley, you end up going up a steep saddle, and somewhere in there is Swampy Pass, but I don't know which one is which, so I'm not saying it's the first one you come to. But if you get up on that saddle and you keep going up instead of back down, you follow a high ridge above tree line, you get to the top of that 13er, West Elk Peak, which is the highest point left of that volcano. And no, I have not done that yet, which I don't even know why. It just was never the top adventure on the list. But I want to do it, maybe even this fall. But it's a long enough approach that I'm thinking maybe to make it more fun, I'll take a tent. The tent would allow me to enjoy camping up there, get good rest, and then I can summit the peak and come back down, spend another night, or just hike out. I think round trip it's probably 14 or 15 miles, so it's certainly doable in a day. But why not enjoy it? So notice the trees. Trying to avoid sliding into one of these holes. Slippery. I've seen big trees in Colorado and other places, but for the Gunnison Valley, these are some of the bigger ones. You know, we're talking about 75 footers, and that's rare in Colorado, period, because of the altitude. But yeah, there's some 75 footers, there's some 50 footers, and the trunks, you know, they might be 18 or even 20 inches across on some of the bigger trees. When I get to a forest like this, I just feel so alive, you know? So I said something about the 20 miles of this ride, and I figured I was underestimating. I'm 18 miles into it at this point, and probably not quite halfway. So call it a 40 mile ride. Oh, this is nice. Well, this shows you how frequently this road is used. I don't know how long that tree's been down, but looks like a couple of people have driven around it, but not enough to make ruts, just the grass being pushed down. Goodness, here's another one blown over. That one is still green. Well, looks like we're coming up on a bigger view here. This might be fun. Oh, this is wild. What am I looking at? But I think we're going to get a view of the 13er that I was talking about. It doesn't look very significant from here. Not very prominent. The view's just getting better and better. Oh, wow. Better watch where I'm going. I just hit a rock and kicked my motorcycle. Yeah, I am really glad I came up here. I had no idea that you got views like this. So that's the Mill Creek area right there. I'm not sure if we're seeing the 13er. It might be hiding from us, but that could be it right there. You see where the cliffs are, that's all breccia, those steep cliffs. Probably can't see it on the GoPro, but that's Uncompahgre, the 14er. And there's Sneffels. Oh, I bet you can't see it, but Mount Sneffels, another 14er. And across from Uncompahgre, there's a pointy mountain there, which I think is Wetterhorn. Not sure. Most places in this valley, Wetterhorn's hidden behind Uncompahgre, but it sure looks like that could be Wetterhorn. There's another mountain or two that are kind of steep in there. What a beautiful place. Wow. Yeah, and you see the throngs of tourists everywhere. So I thought this was the main road, but it just went up to the view. Be a nice place to camp, huh? I'm going to take this other pig trail, because I think it might go to the trailhead. What beautiful country. Gunnison country. This is the fun of riding around anywhere, but I have found in the Gunnison area, Gunnison County, maybe even the extended area a little beyond Gunnison County. You know, you can get into Sawatch and Pitkin real easily from here, and Montrose, of course. But you just find a little road like this that you've not been on, and no one's been on it forever. Colorado River Cutthroat Trout Recovery Project. So the watershed here, yeah, it's Beaver Creek. Look at that. The watershed project here is trying to protect the habitat for cutthroat. The problem is, cutthroat were native. Let's take a look at this sign here. Zigzag Trail number 601, Beaver Creek, 1.5 miles. Hiking and horses. No bikes, no motorcycles, no ATVs. Well, shootski. Either there's a trail that I missed. Oh, there it is. There is a trail that I missed. This is the National Forest Wilderness boundary. On the other side of that post, no motorized vehicles, not even bicycles allowed. Beautiful. On the very edge of the wilderness. Oh man, there is a trail here. It's open to motorcycles. This is the one that goes down to Mill Creek. I'm not going to go very far, but this is actually a trail. So when I ride alone, I don't like to take chances, because there's no one to help if something goes south, you know? something goes sideways. Someone drove a side-by-side or something down here. The grass is pushed down. That's funny. The grass is pushed down. One vehicle came through. So when I have a riding buddy with me, then I'm going to want to go down there. We have blazes on the trees. Could be fun. It's not a wide single track either. Had to hit that log square and it almost put me into the tree. All right, so I want to know what that trail is. I'm a little concerned because it's wet right now, and I've been on roads at the bottom of that trail that get really slimy with that black gumbo. And in the trees, especially there, the sun doesn't dry it out very quickly. So I need a couple of dry days in a row, maybe, before trying that trail. Because that black gumbo is so slippery, you wouldn't be able to stay on the trail if it's wet. I'm glad I scouted that though, because I was thinking about trying to do that with Travis. We're gonna go riding together. But if it's wet like this, maybe we'll choose something else. Okay, I'll be back in a bit. So I'm almost back to the other road now. But I had a couple things to mention, and then I realized too that there'll be some changes of scenery later on, but it's going to look a lot like this, so I might as well record some of this, and then I'll light up the camera when we get to the other end. First thing, I started talking about the trees that were blown down. We don't get a lot of wind down in the valley, but up here there are high winds. And when you see an 18-inch tree snapped off in the middle, I mean, maybe the trunk was unstable there for some reason, but it just always amazes me. And I've seen trees do this in the wind, where if the wind is at the right speed, the tree will kind of start bowing instead of just blowing, if that makes sense. And it can oscillate at the right frequency until it builds up so much energy. It's resonant frequency for that length of the trunk. And it can build up such a big whip, kind of like, you know, standing wave on a string. How you can take a rope and go up and down with it and make a loop that stands there. Well, the tree trunk does that until it snaps. But sometimes there are microbursts up here. I don't even know what they're caused by, except that it's a wind shear event where wind just dives against the mountain all at once. And I've seen places where there are blowdowns of entire sections of the forest where something like that hits. And I mean, it's a kind of damage that a tornado would do. And it's not that you see it everywhere, but there are places where you see it. Now, some people see an avalanche run out that took out the trees, and they think that, you know, that was a microburst, it was just an avalanche. But that's something amazing too. But there are places where you'll find them up here, where it's like all the trees are blown down, you know, all lay in the same direction. And I mean, it's like a bomb went off. There's the other road down there. The weather around the mountains is just amazing. Mother Nature likes to flexor muscles around here. It's pretty common at altitude in the wintertime to have winds that in excess of 100 miles an hour. That's not uncommon at all. That's like a Tuesday. Not a hurricane, a Tuesday. But these trees generally survive it. I've been amazed. Okay, there's the other road. I've got some sort of a bug on my helmet. Might be inside of my helmet. And it looked like it had a stinger. Time to take pause. Take off my helmet. Be right back. My helmet off. I thought I might as well show you how pretty this is. In Colorado, when the floor of the forest is this lush, you know you're in a wet place for Colorado. I love this road as it goes through these meadows here. The wilderness area is just to our right. And it's just lovely to go through here and see the flowers and the beautiful views. I just realized the scenery changed and I didn't turn on the camera. This aspen grove, it's rare to see aspen this big, so there are foot-wide, 14-inch trunks. And then all of a sudden it's just like a thicket of tiny ones. But on the left and back there, huge aspen. Aspen require quite a bit of water comparatively, so when you see that many aspen, you know you're in a lush, wet area. So this part of the road is a great place for an adventure bike. No problems here. But at some point, you probably want to turn around if you're coming up this way, the way that I'm going down. It's starting to open up. The trees are getting a little bit smaller, and pretty soon we're going to hit BLM land again. Kind of fun road. You can give the horse its head and let it run a little bit. Kind of hard to see how rough the road is because of the shadows. Give the horse its head. Whee! Didn't sound like it was going to turn on. I'm going to run out of battery pretty soon. So I thought I'd stop. Lupin, that's what the name of the purple flowers are. Wanted you to see the valley I was talking about. This is a campsite that doesn't get used very much. But on the horizon there's Uncompahgre. Just a nice big valley, and we're looking toward the 13er there, the top of what's left of the volcano. But over this shoulder is another valley just like it, and over that one's another valley just like it, all the way around the mountain. I don't know if it's the biggest remaining mountain in Colorado. Very well could be. It's a contender. I mean, it is about the same size as Kilimanjaro, which is the biggest mountain in Africa, and the huge mountain. It's just that this one's worn down, so it's not tall anymore. tell if it's on or not. I've determined to post this video unedited because I don't have time in my life to edit videos these days, and I still want to post it. I'm getting to different scenery now. Yeah, it's on. Woo, whiskey throttle. Tempting, but it'll get you. So the trees are getting small, as you can tell. We're getting to a lower elevation, drier side. And you can kind of get a feel for the southern side of the mountain and the valley. Man, I think it's so lovely. I like the changes in the scenery. It's not just one thing around here. You got it all. I'll pause for a minute. W Mountain, I don't know if you can see the W, which is actually called Tenderfoot. And you see the road down in the valley, and then there are other roads that go up that shoulder over there, which I also explored. That's a labyrinth back there, man. I got lost. So now we're entering BLM land and bigger views. Relatively smooth. So what I would like to do, you know, at the beginning when I got to the first Y, I said that road goes down into the valley to the beaver dams, and then it cuts across, but I haven't figured out how to connect it with the other side. This is the other side. And those roads that come off of this one that I just showed you down in the valley become a labyrinth. I'm sure that there's one that connects there. I just have to scout it out. Then, I don't know, it might be fun to come over that way to connect with this road, to take it the loop in the opposite direction, which is definitely better for the downhill because those steep climbs on the baby heads, they're just more fun down than up. Woo! There's some soft dust in there. I did not expect sand. Ready to take my front tire. Well, I think I might end the video. Let me tell you how it ends. I go down into this green valley, and I come out just almost at the inlet of Blue Mesa Reservoir. And then I take Highway 50 east for, I don't know, just a few miles, 3 miles, I don't know. And then I take 135 north, and the ride finishes where I started. So I'm 30 miles so far. By the time I get home, it'll be 40. I guess it's a 40-mile loop. Probably takes a couple hours if you don't waste any time. Because a lot of it is just very slow going. So that's what it's like. You know, I'll call that the McIntosh loop. I don't even know what to call it, but hope you enjoyed it. adventure on, my friends.